So let's get started. So I am Alexa Hamill. I am one of the associate directors for advising and programming. I am also an alum of the college. I graduated in 2013. And for today, we are going to be talking about networking as an alum. So this is definitely one of the newer workshops we're doing, given that networking is it's such a broad topic that there are so many different takes, different perspectives, and ways to use networking. So given that this is part of our summer colloquium, although this is geared towards alums, this is something that you can use whether you're a current student or once you do become an alum. You'll see there are so many ways, even as a student, that you can incorporate strategies that I have when you're networking as a professional. So let's get started. So this is going to be our agenda for today. So first, we're just going to be doing the basics. What is networking? Why should you be networking? Then we'll go over the different areas where you can connect. So this would be Barnard Connect, LinkedIn, and we'll also go over some additional areas that would be more unique to someone who is an alum. Then we'll go over informational interviews and some strategies to actually best practices for connecting with alums and other individuals you'll be networking with, and then talking about how are you going to be following up and maintaining these connections. So what exactly is networking? So the basic foundation of networking is just building and maintaining professional relationships. All you're doing is really networking with somebody, speaking to somebody else who, like I like to say to advisees, just knows more about a certain topic than you may know at this time. And so you're learning from what we consider kind of experts in the field that really know the nuances and the insights and can share that with you. So as opposed to kind of you doing a little bit more trial and error or kind of learning it on your own, they can kind of guide you in terms of giving you those insights in advance so you're really prepared and can make more educated decisions about your career development, as well as just what you are going to be pursuing right after you graduate. And these relationships can be developed and built either in person or online. Obviously now everything is virtual, but you'll definitely hear me speak about the importance of actually having phone conversations, video calls, eventually in person, to really develop that professional relationship, have that investment, so that way that professional relationship can be maintained and something that you're both really invested in either side, just given the personal factor that comes into something that's more in person or by video. You don't need to know somebody personally to network. So this is definitely different in terms of maybe more social networking. So this is something that when you're networking, most of the time you don't know somebody personally. So you're thinking of this more so as just starting a new professional relationship. So I like to say, and if there's usually, because there's so much content in all these workshops, I like to say if there's like one thing that you can really take away, this is definitely the one thing I hope everyone takes away, is that networking is not just for a job seeker. It's not just for somebody who's actively seeking a job. If anything, this networking should be taking place outside of the time that you are actively seeking a position. Because once you're actively seeking a position, there's usually not enough time for you to develop that rapport, to feel comfortable, to leverage that connection for recruiting. And they don't necessarily know you well enough to feel comfortable referring you. So the time to be networking is the time that you're not actually actively seeking the job. And we'll go over so many of the other reasons why you will be networking outside of just for recruiting purposes, which also plays into the fact that you will be networking outside of the time that you're just strictly going to be in a recruiting season. So why do you network? So I like to, because this, like I said, is a little bit of a more unique perspective about networking in terms of networking as an alum. So I like to kind of divide this in terms of what a student would typically network for and what an alum could typically be networking for. So as a student, a lot of times this is just your entrance point. This is you just learning first about a field, about a degree program. This is just your first kind of initial idea of what does it mean to be in this job, or there's tons of jobs that I don't even know about, but by speaking to these individuals, I can learn about. A lot of times, like I said, this is for somebody that's going to be actively recruiting. So they're going to be using that for new opportunities, just to even find out what opportunities are out there and possibly leverage that for referrals. And that's not to say that an alum is not going to use their network for the same purposes. It's just that there are additional reasons and a lot of topics that maybe a student is not necessarily focused on just yet, but as an alum is really important in incorporating with your network. So first and foremost is just career development. So although you maybe have so let's just say this is somebody who has a job. Although you have a job and you kind of use your network for that purposes, there's still so many skills and just those unwritten rules of the workplace that is still really new. So by having somebody in your network that can really share those hard career skills, but also some of those professional insights that are still new to you as somebody who's just entering the workforce. Career advancement. So, you've got this amazing entry position. How can you now leverage that to continue going up in the ladder? What are some best strategies, especially, reaching out to more senior people and hearing about their experiences? This is also your opportunity to continue to explore the industry, the job function. So a lot of times as a student, and especially as a recent alum, there are a lot of maybe job functions that you haven't even heard of. And the industry is a perfect fit, but working in a professional environment, you're working in a specific team, and then you realize that there are all these other teams that maybe are a little bit more in line with your interests. But by being in that environment, you can hear from other teams, learn about what other job functions are, and that will allow you to continue to explore the opportunities to know, is this the right fit where you are? Or maybe you're going to be making a slight change or transition because there's this job function you didn't know before, but now seems like a really great fit. And networking also for yourself to serve as a mentor. It's super rewarding. It's a great feeling. I'm sure yourself reaching out to mentors, being able to now have mentees of your own and kind of give back to the community is such a rewarding experience. It's a way for you to give back in such an important way. And as an alum, just like as when you guys were students, you're really seeking that advice. You're going to really be now that person for a lot of students. So now, where are you going to be connecting? So the areas we're going to be focusing on today and in the beginning in terms of alumni networking is going to be on Barnard Connect, LinkedIn. And then, like I said, we'll go over some areas that are a little bit more unique to opportunities to network as a professional, as an alum. So first we're going to start, I'm just going to stop sharing for a quick sec, just so I can log on to my Barnard Connect account. So you can see, and we can do, I'm sure you guys kind of know the ins and outs by now, but I can just give you a quick overview of some best practices and how you can use Barnard Connect as an alum. So let me just log on real quick. Okay. So I'll switch from a student to an alum. So a huge, amazing improvement that just started this past semester is now alums can still explore the community. So before, Barnard Connect was really just for students to receive mentorships, alums to be the mentor, but now we expanded it so that alumni can also receive mentorship from other alums. So this Explore the Community tab, basically everything that you would typically see as a student is there, which is great. So this Explore the Community tab, which used to not be there for alums, is still here. So you can explore the community, search for alums, fellow alums by different industry, what was their major. You can be even more specific if you have your sights set on a certain organization, or you can pick from a bunch of topics like work-life balance, career advancement, some of the other topics that we discussed that you may be more focused on as an alum. We have a groups function now. So we have groups by affinity or identity, as well as by professional groups. So that's a great way of having not as much one-on-one, but having more group discussions and not necessarily an individual mentoring, but just an opportunity to share resources and advice that people that are both experienced as well as just getting started in the field can share. We have the discussion board still, and then resources would be common networking and mentoring questions we get, how to do the initial outreach, how to follow up, things that we're going to be talking about today. But again, definitely because of the improvements we've made, it's not going to change much from what your current homepage looks like as a student. And then once we transition your status from student to an alum, which will be around the end of the summer, you'll get a notification letting you know that But like I said, as an alum now, you can also serve as a mentor. So you can choose to have other students reach out to you to potentially seek mentorship or fellow alumni, which is great. So now let's just go to LinkedIn, since I know that's going to be the next item up. So once you go through Barnard Connect, and I like to say to start on Barnard Connect, because on Barnard Connect, all of the alums that are there volunteer to be there. So it's not like we did like a mass kind of input of all alums. So we just hit 1,000 alums. So many alums that are on there volunteered to be there. They're really actively seeking to help. So that's why we usually say to start there, because you know that this is a community that's really invested in mentoring and networking. But for the most comprehensive, widespread outreach for alumni, that's really where you're going to be going on LinkedIn. So the way to go, there's a bunch of different ways to search, but the way that I like to do it is if you search for Barnard College, you'll click on our official page, which is here, or I visit so much that it actually came up on mine, but let's just say that it didn't. So here you can see, if I click on alumni, you can see very similar filters to Barnard Connect will come up. So like where they work, what do they do? So the industry, what they study, you can do by what they listed as their skills. And so then all of the alums that meet that criteria, their profiles will populate below, so you can learn more about what their job function is, what they're doing, and this is where you can connect. So the slight difference on LinkedIn is you do have to be connected to send a message, and I'll go over some tips for that. But other than that, again, this is just another opportunity for you to connect with just a broader community of alumni. So now let's go back to the presentation. Okay. So adding new context to your network. So we went over how to find alums through the group. So some things with your LinkedIn profile. So before you actually do outreach to anybody, you do want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is complete, because this is their way of having a virtual resume of yours. So it's not like you necessarily applied for a job and they have your resume. So that way, when you're doing the outreach, you're not having to include everything about yourself. They can just look at your profile for that information. So other things to keep in mind would be including a professionally appropriate picture. It's just a statistics on LinkedIn that the more likely it is to actually receive responses includes just having a professional picture. Nothing crazy, shoulders up. You could have somebody take it on your iPhone, but you do want to include a picture there. Also, when we have the opportunities fair, we usually have a photographer available for those LinkedIn headshots. So once we're back in person, you can take a look at that. Make sure you complete each section of your profile. So something common that I see is sometimes people will just put their title and company, but you do want to include your bullets just like you have on your resume, because again, they don't have their resume in front of them. So this is their way of understanding everything that you did while you were in that experience. Aligning your profile with professionals in your field. So just see, just like you would on your resume, what action verbs are they using? How are they describing their experience to kind of keep it in line with other professionals? Branding yourself by making your headline and summary section specific. So your headline, once you actually receive a job, could be what your current job is. Like my headline would be like career advisor at Barnard College. And then summary section, where it's going to look slightly different, is if you're not actively seeking a position, which for the sake of this particular workshop, we're saying that this is networking as an alum, the only part that's going to be slightly different in your summary section is that last part about you actively seeking opportunities. So you're still going to summarize what's most relevant for professionals to know about you, what's something, recently. So like I recently graduated from Barnard College, your major, what you're doing now. Again, it's to summarize it, but you're not including that you're actively seeking something, because again, for the purposes of this workshop, you're leaving that part out because you're using networking for different purposes outside of recruiting. Other things that's great on LinkedIn, joining groups. So joining your company's group, other groups that are by industry, ways that you can kind of leverage and expand your network. Personalize your connection request. So that's what I meant, that's slightly different on LinkedIn. In order to send a message, you do have to be connected. So with that, I always like to say to personalize it. So when you're adding somebody and you hit connect, it'll give you the option to add a note, which I recommend doing, just to let them know that you're also a Barnard alum or you're also working in the field, just to provide that kind of common ground and that you're interested in speaking more about X. And then recommendations is also something a little bit more unique to LinkedIn. So you can request that people write recommendations on your behalf. So a previous supervisor can write about the great experience that they had working with you. And that's just another way of elevating your professionalism on your profile from a different perspective. So these are areas that are going to be unique to alums that are additional awesome ways to continue to expand. So within your current organization, again, going back to my main point, networking is not just for people seeking jobs. So within your current organization, you already have the job, but there are going to be other opportunities and ways for you to learn. So like I said, there may be another department that you've never heard of and you want to learn more. So reaching out to people on that team. There may be people on your current team that is doing a slightly different job function or working on different projects. So being able to learn more from them will be able to assess, is your current job the right fit? And also will just make you a better worker by understanding what other teams are and how that plays into your role. By having a higher view, more holistic view of how all the parts work will only make you a better professional as well. And a lot of these organizations now have built-in internal networks. So for example, especially at organizations and industries where maybe women, it's not as common for women to be in like leadership roles or even to be in the field, they'll have like a women's network, for example, where other women in the organization can come together, have discussion on topics that are in the forefront of your mind. So that's also a great thing when you're looking at organizations, but then once you're in the organization, to look at, to join as just having another community within your organization. There are also awesome networking events in your area to check out, professional memberships that you can join, and then lastly, volunteer opportunities. And this doesn't have to just be volunteer opportunities like in your field. It could be that on the side you have a personal interest and this is just another way of meeting people. You never know who other people know. You never know who you're connected with. You never know by meeting somebody what you can get into talking about. So this is just to say there are so many ways of learning from people, and you won't really know what you can learn from these individuals and in these different ways until you kind of put yourself out there. So definitely make sure you're exposing yourself to all of these different ways and all of these awesome opportunities where you can just learn from other people's experiences to help with assessing, are you in the right spot and where do you want to go from here? So now we're going to be speaking about informational interviews and what those are. Excuse me. Okay, so informational interviews. So the goal of these interviews is, again, it's learning from experts in the field. And what I mean by experts in the field is just somebody that's been working in the field that has gone through experiences previously and can share their insights and advice based on what they know. So it's not interviewing in the sense of like you're interviewing for a position. It's interviewing in the sense of gathering information from somebody else. So these are just conversations that you're conducting to find out more about a career path, an organization, their insights, anything that they can share with you as somebody who's new to the field. It's important to note that for this though, you're the one really leading the conversation. So you're the one asking questions. Generally, it'll kind of go in its own direction, especially once the alum realizes what your interests are and what they can recommend. But at least in the beginning, you're really leading that conversation, letting them know exactly what you're interested in learning more about. And definitely make sure prior to doing the outreach and meeting with these individuals, you're doing some research before to show your professionalism, have the basics of at least have a foundational understanding about what you're looking to learn more about, look at their profile, learn about their experiences, just be prepared. And that way, when they're saying some jargon, you kind of already have that under your belt because you've done some research on your own. So this is an example for an informational interview. So I'm going to pause here, have you guys read that through, and then I'll point out the parts that you want to make sure you're also including in your informational interview request. Okay. So this is an example of somebody who has a job. So you can see here, like if I were doing a networking workshop for current students, like I may be having this more geared towards like wanting to learn about opportunities, more about the organization in terms of like recruiting purposes. But this would be somebody who is currently just started on the team and is learning to start networking and reaching out to people, learning more about what they do, and specifically somebody who is higher up and kind of share that insight and potentially provide, continued mentorship as somebody who's looking to grow in the field. So with this, first you're just introducing yourself, your title, the team that you're on, referencing specifics. So what got you engaged, really show that you're invested and you're reaching out to them specifically for a reason. How they can assist. So this is really saying, this is what you're looking to do. These are your goals, and this is specifically how they can assist. And then your intention to meet. So get coffee, ask for lunch, start having these dialogues and developing these internal networks within your organization. So now we're going to talk about following up and maintaining these connections. So following up. So within 24 hours of having a conversation with somebody, you do want to always send a thank you email. Whether it was a 5-minute conversation, whether you learned a ton, you didn't learn as much, it's always important to thank somebody for their work. It's really important and critical for enlisting in future support from this person to really recognize the time that they're taking to assist. It could be really brief. I like to say to include what you learned to show, again, that you were really engaged. So any advice that they have for you. And if they do have any suggestions for you, so they say, follow up with this person, look into this resource, definitely make sure you're doing that in a timely way, especially if it is a shared contact. They're most likely going to be maybe giving the heads up. So you want to follow up in a timely fashion. If you are going to be reaching out to somebody that they recommend you reach out to, maybe they're saying, oh, you're interested in this team, I know somebody, I'll connect you. Make sure you CC the person that is the original person you spoke to, just so that they know what the connection is and how you got their information and why you're reaching out. And maintaining connections. So this is really big. A lot of times with networking, I think one of the problems could be that you're just focusing on this one conversation and then you kind of don't maintain it with the strategies that I'm going to recommend. So then you kind of lose touch. So maybe you do have a question in the future or something, and it's been maybe a year since the last time you spoke. So you do want to keep the momentum going, even if it's just sporadic, just to kind of keep that relationship there. So some things you can do is, one, update to previous recommendations. So if they said to check out a newsletter or to join a professional membership, updating them to let them know your thoughts and what you find to be really helpful. Share new responsibilities, promotions, accomplishments that you have. Pass on any articles or events, information that may be of interest. Maybe you spoke about, maybe they're a Barnard alum within your organization and you saw a really cool event that Barnard was doing, forwarding that, passing that along. Congratulate contacts if you learn they've been promoted or they're changing jobs, whether it be an internal email that you receive about this or just on LinkedIn when you connect with them, you'll get updates. So making sure you're following up if you're seeing any of those positive changes. Also, something really simple is around like holiday season. A lot of times people list their birthdays on LinkedIn. Again, these are just really easy things that you don't have to be doing a lot, but just to keep the connection there. So if there is a specific reason to reach out in the future, you continue to kind of have that investment that you're also putting into it. And then lastly is pay it forward, which is huge. Even if it's not necessarily for professional advice, like maybe you're somebody that's really new and maybe you're not going to be necessarily providing so much expertise to somebody else, even if it's something really small, like maybe they have a daughter that's considering Barnard and, you can offer to maybe reach out to her daughter to provide insight or mentorship. And then eventually when you do become more of that expert, making sure that you're paying it forward, giving it back. You never know how it's going to come back to you. And again, it is really rewarding and a great spot to be in, to be able to kind of share the advice that you were once seeking. And again, I'm going back to my key takeaway. Networking is something that should be going on at all times, and especially not just when you're actively seeking an opportunity. And you can see all of these reasons why it's important to network and maintain and grow your network as you're continuing to grow as a professional, seeking new opportunities. Your network is only going to be there to help you, and being and having a networking that's really established will allow you to get to places faster, whether it be advanced, get closer to a job that's more in line with your interests. So only positives can come out of it, but it is something that you want to make sure that you are consistently doing and not just during the times that you feel like you're actively seeking a job. So now I'll stop sharing. So we have some time for Q&A. So I think I have something in the chat. Oh, no worries. Someone just has another meeting. So any questions about anything I went over, anything I didn't go over that you wanted me to speak to? You could either unmute yourself, take yourself on video, or you could just put it in the chat, whatever you prefer. No questions? Okay, well, I hope you all enjoyed it. Again, this is definitely a more unique workshop, really geared towards networking for alums. We do have other networking more so as it relates to students and more for recruiting purposes. So in the future, we'll definitely have those, especially during Career Skills Week and things like that. Oh, you're welcome. But so definitely take a look under the event section for other events we have, both summer colloquium as well as outside of our summer colloquium during the academic year. And I'm always available for any questions or advising sessions as well. So thank you guys so much for coming. Stay safe, stay well, and I will talk to you all soon. No problem.